Ladies and gentlemen, a couple months ago, we decided to do a blast of Soilwork. I enjoyed it so much and Ben hated it so much that I thought we needed to do a double album tonight just to make it come full circle. And we are doing Soilwork's The Living Infinite. But before we begin that, let me introduce my comrade in arms here, the Dr. David Pizzo, Mordhouse Gabe Cooper, and the Reverend Ben Lindsay. How y'all doing tonight, gentlemen?
Doing
Living
good.
the infinite dream, riding majestically into the birth.
Various other
Put
album titles.
Put all the album titles. Put them all in there.
We're
I'm
just stabbing the
panicking
drama
about this broadcast.
Sworn to the great divide.
and stabbing the drama.
Maybe that's what I was going to say. I just kind of stabbed this drama and put an end to it. So,
It's
Tracey,
just-
why this album? Just to torture Ben? Why else?
Well, no.
There's so
I
many
know-
ways to torture Ben. Why this one?
Well, we had talked about it when you were putting your blast together. And I'm like, I asked about this album. You're like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, okay, cool. Because this is one of my favorite albums of all time. And then Ben said he'd listened to it on accident.
I did. I
Quotation marks.
completely listened to it on accident.
So I was like, well, let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. And I'll put it on here for one of our early albums next year when we were starting to get the calendar together for 2022.
So this is one of the only albums you didn't put in the hand of mathematical fate, right? Because all the rest
Correct. There's a couple in there. I think all but 3 are mathematical fate for this year from me.
So to close that loop for the blast, the album that everybody else except for my dumbass listened to was The Ride Majestic, their 10th studio album. So I went back and listened to that. I'm not going to belabor the point. Soilwork is one of those weird bands for me. The playing is always great. The songwriting I don't think is necessarily always great. I thought that was a really good album though, and I would give it a B. So, but now on to the album at hand, The Living Infinite, their 9th studio album, released on 3/1 of 2013. Label Nuclear Blast. Jens Bulgaren and Soilwork were the producers. Runtime a ludicrous 84 minutes and 19 seconds. The band itself are Bjorn Strid on vocals, Sylvain Codet on guitars, David Andersson on guitars, Ola Flink on bass, Sven Carlson on keyboards, Dirk Verberen on drums, with Justin Sullivan as a guest musician for the vocals on the Wind Sweat Mercy. And they also had Hannah Carlson play cello on Spectrum of Eternity, The Living Infinite 2, and she played the piano on Spectrum of Eternity.
It's not a ludicrous 84 minutes. It's a wonderful 84 minutes when you're enjoying all of them.
Well,
I mean,
also it's a double album, so
It is a double album. So it's not completely ludicrous, but depends on how you feel about double albums.
Which Ben is known to hate them.
Yeah. I will take that way. I am a hater of a double album.
What if each album were 10 minutes? Would then you be okay with that?
Yeah.
A double EP?
If you could do a double album and it come in under 60 minutes, then I'm not going to complain about it.
So 2 Slayer albums is what you're saying. Like,
Exactly.
from the Awaiting the Label era.
Oh,
What do you like about this album so much, Tracey?
Well-
I like it too. I'm not being as accusatory as I sound.
well, this is the album where they changed songwriters. What was it? Weber, is that it? He's out at this point. Who's the guitarist that left prior to this album?
I'm drawing a blank on his name, but I love the shit out of him. And every time he came back, it got better.
Yeah.
I'm not going to look it up. Anyway, anyone can. He's no longer with them and he was not writing at this stage, which is why historically I didn't like this album as much because I liked the sound he achieved.
Yeah.
I'll look it up for you, Tracey.
I keep thinking Max Faber, but that's not right. But this is the first album that came out, I think, after I'd gotten into Soilwork heavily.
You mean Peter Vickers?
Yeah, Peter Vickers.
Yes.
And so this is the one I was hyped to hear, like, oh, this is coming. I'm ready to hear it. And I think their first single they released for it was Spectrum of Eternity. That song opens the album, and it opens in such a interesting way that I really enjoyed, and just I think this album flows really well from start to finish, and I've just listened to it so fucking much. Like I know every song off this album by heart, kind of thing. So it was the first album that I think I got that I was looking forward to release when I was listening to Soilwork. So it's from the one kind of like in personally, I guess I probably spent the most time with as well.
I mean, I like Soilwork a lot, and I've been on the ride since having the drama and gotten everything after. I got it when it came out. I listened to it some, but I think I was just annoyed at the lineup change and shit was busy. I don't know. It fell through the cracks somewhat. And so later when I made a big playlist, I went back and listened to the songs and added nearly all of them, I have to say. So it is quite good, but at the time it just didn't, I don't know, slap with me for whatever reason. But looking back, yeah, there's some good shit on here. And uh for a double album, it's okay. I'm kind of team Ben on this. I loved probably far more than makes sense to Ben anyway, Hush and Grim, but man, they could have used a little editing. And I know that it wouldn't be a double album anymore, but 84 minutes is a long time to commit to a thing like this. But they thought it was necessary, so
I think I think the change in songwriters, I think, is probably one of the major reasons they did. Is like a stamp of like we hear Peter Vickers is gone, and this is now. And I think I lean more towards their songwriting style than I did Peter Vickers, just because I've enjoyed post Peter Vickers era more than I have his work.
I'm the opposite, and that's okay. Metal is a big tent. Soilwork is a big tent. I like both, but I just like that other stuff better because he rocked my face.
Oh, go ahead, Ben.
So I have to preface this, as I often do with a lot of these bands that Tracey picks that record incredibly too long albums that meander all over the place, that the playing on this is phenomenal. And it does flow fairly well, I guess, but you know what else flows well, but it's not enjoyable? Diarrhea. And that is kind of what this experience reminded me of, because I thought it was never going to end, and listening to it. And as pretty as the playing is, and as beautiful as the singing is, and all of these other superlatives that you can say about it, these songs are just to me, not catchy except for a couple, which we'll get to when we get to tracks. And it was just, this is one of those that I'd be like, oh, is this ever going to end, this track? This beautiful arpeggio or guitar part that they're playing that is not connected to anything in a meaningful way for my experience. And often it did not.
Okay. Well, I think that for me, this album got right what a few of the other albums that we covered in our blast got wrong. In the sense that the keyboards are tasteful. The sort of melodic bits are not gratuitous or overly poppy or just saccharine. And that's most of the time, which is good. I do think it's a bit on the long side. But that said, the things that I like on here, I like almost as much as the Panic broadcast. So I think it's, as far as double albums go, it's relatively successful. And in terms of Soilwork, I think it's more successful compared to some of the other stuff they put out.
I think the difference for me and Ben on run times is 84 minutes doesn't bother me when it's something I'm enjoying. And so bands I like end up typically releasing long albums anyways. Well, stuff Ben likes is short, sweet, to the point. And so 84 minutes just becomes torture for him.
For me, it's purely pragmatic insofar as I have like at most a 90-minute slot to dedicate to this in a focused way. So like if I can't knock it out when I'm at the gym, it's a problem. Like if I have to spread out over 2 times, and not to be like that guy, but it makes it hard. to listen to an album as many times as I like to.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for, the ideal situation of being able to listen to the record without interruption. But like, who really has that? I mean, David, like if you're,
Once a day for
not
an
even
hour.
everybody, like it's like it's a luxury too. And
It is.
I think that if the album is good, it should stand up to not being listened to in a single sitting. I'm sorry. It's like
Indeed.
regardless of how long it is, like it should be able to hold up, right?
I
Agreed.
agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm
100%.
going to ding it for being too long. So, so I like Soilwork and I like a lot of the songs on here, but even as much as I love them, again, I guess I like the older style a little bit more, and it goes on for a good bit. And I feel like there was some some editing that could have been done, but
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's another one of those cases, kind of almost like with Hush and Graham, or what was the other egregiously long double album that we did? Was that Colors too?
It was a single album, but it was right at the hour 20-minute mark.
Yeah. I like to listen to these all the way through, and at some point it stops being enjoyable and starts being laborious, even if it's an album by a band that I like. And I think Soilwork is phenomenal musicians. And if you look at over at the grades, I'm not as high as David or Tracey are on them, but I think that they have albums that I think are incredibly good, and I think that their playing is always par excellence. But this is just, man, and again, there's something about this that, as much as I agree with Gabe that you should be able to listen to a couple of songs and come back to the album, that shouldn't interrupt your experience. This was kind of a disjointed flow to me whenever I would try to do that.
I'm
Yeah,
also
same.
saying that because I wasn't able to like sit down and
believe
listen
that.
to it in
Yeah.
one go. Like I just couldn't.
I couldn't either. Yeah, it's too long. And I would sneak out, would get bored and want to listen to other shit. So I did. So
I accidentally listened to Slayer instead.
what happened? Well, we had a lot this week. Like I could instantly go back to Judas Priest and justify it. Like that was a thing I could do at any time and no one could stop me. Or death metal. So, it's hard. But again, I'm going to make it sound like I don't like this album. I like Soilwork a lot. This album, you'll see, I'm going to give it a higher grade than Ben will, I'm sure. But it's not their top for me.
Yeah. I think part of it is the way I've listened to music so much in my life is it's very easy for me. This album's an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, well, I'll listen to it as I go. And if I listen to one sitting, cool. If I listen to it across 4 sittings, okay. Just get through it when I get through it. There's very few albums, I think, for me that I have to, like, if I hear the opening part of the first track, I need to sit down and listen to it all the way through. And part of that, it's Primary Emperor Sand by Mastodon is one of them, where if I don't, it just becomes an entire earworm that won't go away until I finish the album.
You also like to listen to albums to eat up time, though. So, because you listen to a lot of albums at work, so it just makes the time go by faster for you. And I get that. I mean, I always like listening when I worked jobs that were, whether I was a retail job and I was stuck in a place, or when I was working in a factory or something like that. Yeah, I liked listening to music, and then it was like, cool, I can listen to this album that's going to eat up an entire hour, and that's great. But it's not like that for me anymore. The only time it's like that is if I'm driving somewhere, and I'm not driving anywhere currently that is 85 minutes away. And even if I was, I probably would listen to Soilwork.
And it's not even just so much of time. I just hate silence. Like, since my dog died a couple of weeks ago, I've realized how much I listen to music, like just the odds and if I stop and go like, all right, we'll take her outside. Here's 10, 15 minutes here, 10, 15 minutes there throughout the night when I'd listen to music. And now it's like, I get home from work and like, I don't listen to music pretty much until tomorrow when I leave for work the next day. And I'm like, that would have been 2 albums that would have knocked out in the night while I was at home that I'm not doing anymore, kind of deal. But yeah, this is one of my favorite albums of all time. I can go ahead and tell you the tracks that I
Let's
really
do
enjoyed
it.
this stuff.
Let's talk about
All
the
of them done. All of them.
Nice.
All
So-
20 of them.
I think there's some really cool album titles, or not album titles, song titles. The two songs that I like off of here, I think are incredibly good. And they are the Living Infinite 1 and the Living Infinite 2. Well, the rest of them, not really my cup of tea. For one thing, and actually I think this is one of the things that annoys me so much, is that the second album has like a couple of instrumentals on it. It's like, dudes, come on. We don't need these extra instrumentals as well as the 18 other freaking actual songs that you have. But the double title track, love it. Great songs.
Well, I like approximately half of these tracks, especially. I enjoyed Spectrum of Eternity, Memories Confined, Tongue, Living Infinite, Vesta, Whispers and Lights, Long Live the Misanthrope, Antidotes in Passing, Living Infinite 2, and Rise Above the Sentiment. The rest, some of them are okay, some of them are meh, some of them are just could take or leave, which tells me that this album is one album too long. Approximately.
I like most of these tracks. As I said, when I looked back, nearly all of them were on that giant metal playlist I listened to a lot. But they're not all hits. I'm not a huge fan of the instrumentals. I mean, they're all right, but why? Why when it's this long already? I like a lot of the ones you all mentioned. Tongue is really good. I also like Let the First Wave Rise, Vesta. I like Leech. That song's awesome. Yeah, it's good. I like listening to it, but by the time I got to Owls Protect, Oracle Show or whatever, I was like, okay, like it was, it's sort of a bit of an endurance test. But they're really good. They're a good band. This is Tracey 102.
Not 102, but it's an A plus. I'm gonna give it a 98.
I'm gonna come in at an A minus, yeah, it's like a 91. It's fine. I just, for all the reasons I've enumerated, I like some of the earlier stuff better. So A minus.
This is like an A minus B plus for me. I'd say like 89.5, something like that. It is really quite good, but not quite as good as the Panic Broadcast was.
I like 2 out of the 20 tracks. It's a 59F.
Drink, everyone. Plenty of F's left to give.
God damn, what does that do to it, Tracey?
So the Thunderdome aggregate prior to Ben was a 93.
And then with Ben,
After Ben, an 84.
putting it in its place. Don't you dare think you're in the honor roll, you fuckers.
That'd still be the Dean's list.
Dean's list, yeah.
You're like the Russian judge at like the Olympics, right? Like everyone's like, oh, that was a 9.8. And you're like, fuck that. 7.2. You're like, wait, what? That's a thing, Tracey. Trust me.
It was a thing back in the 80s for sure.
It absolutely was. This American 6.
Oh man.
Speaking of Americans and being killed, what's happening next, Tracey?
Before we get to that,
I
just want to say for the record that I did recommend somebody listen to this who I know really loves this type of music.
Okay.
I figured they would really enjoy it. So I don't think it's without merit for certain people, just for me.
So you're willing to sell the product even if you don't believe in it.
I'm an American.
Exactly. Nailed it.
As long as the check's clear, that's all he cares about.
That's right. That's right. But anyway, Tracey, we have something on the horizon. What is that?
Our next album we're looking at is Gabe's second pick ever for us, as we're looking at Corphilia's Severed Monolith.
And I do appreciate that Gabe included this picture of what happens in his basement right here on the cover. This is a typical scene.
Typical Saturday evening.
Cleft in twain by lightning or whatever's happening here in space.
That is
Indeed.
an amazing album cover.
It is an amazing album cover.
It looks like it's an acrylic painting. So,
I know it
Well,
totally does. It's someone's
the crazy
bedroom.
thing is he's somewhere outside of a galaxy, but close. But there's a random ass dark planet, couple of them flying by as well. So physics
Yeah.
have been broken as well.
I mean, those
Hey, man.
galaxies could be heading towards each other.
it could be.
You forgot the other possibility, apocalypse.
Mhm. We also don't know the perspective because he could
We
be
don't.
like human size, or he could just be like some
He could be a
colossus.
celestial.
Yeah.
I wondered about that too. Yeah, he's the size of a supercluster for no reason. But I feel
Yes.
him, like the way he feels being sawed in half by lightning with his eye sockets bursting. I feel that.
Yeah, 100%.
That's 2022, man. That's what it looks like. Even though this is what 2017. 2017 new.
Yep.
It's totally did.
Turn in next time to get your death metal on.
Oh. Well, my controls have disappeared.
You don't need no sticking controls.
I don't.